The genres and labels of which a video game falls into, like many things within gaming, have evolved and changed over the years. Some also newly formed following a trend, more often than not a money-generating trend like with battle royales, live services, and gachas. Others came about as a result of a newfound tech. Typically, whenever a new high level of graphical fidelity is achievable and a powerful game engine is within the grasp of gaming studios, many of those studios would succumb to graphic flexing. They'd peculiarly switch their focus from innovating with the gameplay or bettering it to just reaching a high degree of photorealistic visuals or a technical achievement. An easy example of this would be open world games, with some of them having vast, extensive, empty, and not really worth checking out maps. When it comes to hyperrealism specifically, although it's purely visual, the effect of it goes beyond that to then possibly disrupting the balance between the gaming sections and the storytelling sections. This is best seen in the now altered purpose of cutscenes. So instead of short cutscenes that tells you what you need to know and then lets you play the game, they turned into drawn-out movies mimicking cutscenes that take 10, 20, maybe even more away from the gaming part. More recently, telling an impactful, complex story became the focal point of some games, taking precedence over delivering a fun gameplay, as evidenced by the disproportionate time spent in-game engaging with the story to the minimal, possibly even one interact button gameplay. I'm talking about games that fall under the contentious label walking simulator, which is what I want to focus on for this video. Before I go any further, I want to say hi and welcome to my channel. I'm assuming whoever's watching this video is familiar with the term walking simulator, but I want to share my understanding of it so we're all on the same page. So walking simulator to me is like when you go on a haunted house ride for a second time. You're technically experiencing a game. The ride moves on unmodified, set, narrow path. So the things you'll see and the order you'll see them in is no different than anyone else on that ride. And because what you're allowed to do is extremely limited, because you're expected to just experience it, your interaction with whatever surrounds you is again similar to everyone else's. Anyways, there is a general consensus regarding certain games fitting the walking simulator tag. Or at least it wouldn't be easy to argue against them being that. Like with flower, where you control in which directions bunch of flower petals fly to. And that's it. You follow a specific path, then it ends. Yippee! Of course, those games being tagged as such doesn't make them necessarily bad, though at a certain point, the tag itself had a negative connotation to it. However, some games have that tag thrown at them whether it's appropriate or not. It happens a lot to games that have the wanting to be movies look to them. They're like the video game version of Oscar bait movies. They ostensibly aim to impress visually. Their draw and reception too centers around how realistic their graphics are, all the amazing QTE set pieces, as well as how good and emotional the story is. Though them being viewed as walking simulator is based on perception rather than them meeting objective and difficult to dispute parameters. The sector of people who attach that tag to them mostly do so facetiously. I would know because I am part of that sector. I have to admit, I've been kind of prejudging games like that based on my preconceived ideas of what they'll be like and what I've heard about them, without really ever giving them a chance. So I thought I'd dig deeper to see for myself if games like that truly deserve that label or if playing them will change my mind for the better. So I picked Uncharted. I just felt like it'll be a good case study. Since it's kind of a prototype for games like that, it should yield clear results. What I learned from playing the first game to its end is that my scale was off, but what I thought would be there was not completely far off. What I mean by this is that I had expected lots of QTEs, but I think there were 3 to 5 in total. Now, the cutscenes were probably too frequent, and I say probably because I don't have the entire game recorded, so I can't conclude based on a specific number. But while playing, I think each area had at least one cutscene, both at the start of it and at the end. Albeit not all of the cutscenes were lengthy to the let me put my controller down degree. Now, where I got it right, sort of, is with the overall gaming experience. It felt extremely scripted. You can only reach an area through the path the devs painted for you, and your tools to getting there is only jumping. So because this is grounded in reality, there's no tricks nor skills to unlock to versify one's methods or playstyle. So one can only continue with the brain-dead platforming sections until the combat sections. The combat definitely feels less strict, and I think passes more for a game. There is a decent amount of arsenal to choose from. Also, there are melee and stealth takedowns, but this too is scripted, though understandably so perhaps. You can memorize when and where the enemies will spawn at, but that's pretty much it for strategy as far as I know. I couldn't backtrack, go to a higher area and approach the combat that way, or just in general find a more advantageous spot. That doesn't require me to walk straight into the enemy zone. Because firstly, the enemies are spread everywhere. Secondly, other paths are blocked off. So it's one of those games where you look around, explore, and be met up with brick walls, trees blocking the path. Yeah, it's impossible to get lost because the game won't let you go anywhere anyways. I was not gonna mention the story, but I guess it's the bulk of what makes the game. Yeah. I didn't find it to be all that appealing, therefore I didn't like it. Which is sad because all this effort was wasted on it. While the combat was serviceable, the platforming is subpar to boring. It felt like the story parts were made first, then the devs worked some gameplay around it. It's either that or the gameplay was watered down intentionally to not get in the way of the enjoyment of the story. If it wasn't obvious, I detested the game. I dreaded playing it. Freaking Putt-Putt was better than this. Anyways, this leads me to the last point of this video. Why do linear games work but these don't? Or why do they have the linearity criticism while other games, like for instance RPGs, don't? Well, the simple answer is games are expected to be linear to a certain extent. After all, they're just programs. But the more stripped down a game's controls and gameplay elements are, the more it feels like watching a video rather than actively playing a game with the illusion of choice still intact. So yeah, the conclusion I arrived at after giving it some thought is that it's all about the level of freedom. Otherwise, it'll feel like when games take control away from you during a boss fight only to ask you to press X when they want you to. The latter part is what playing Uncharted felt like. Just kidding. Kind of. For what it's worth, I don't mind when games experiment and try to deliver something new. So, walking simulator games that have solid concept or better yet, an artistic approach, I would probably not be too opposed to them. It's just those in between, wishy-washy, trying to be both a game and a movie while excelling in neither, then winning at the Game Award, those I take issues with. But that's how I feel about it. What do you think about what I discussed? Was I being unfair by choosing Uncharted? And what are, I guess, your overall thoughts on walking simulator games? That's it. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video if you like it. Until the next video.